Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good tonight. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is kind of a weird one, to be honest with you. Tonight, we're going to tell a tale that is kind of out there, but it's also interesting. And to do this, we're going to first go to an article that is going to tell this story, and then we'll get into it. The article is from newsintact.com, and it was published on January 4th, 2020. And the title is a classic title. You're going to love this. The title is This Man Spent 8 Days on Another Planet. Arthur Burlett, a simple tractor driver from the Sarandi Prefecture, Rio Grande do Sul, would become one of the first people on Earth who had traveled on another planet. On the evening of May 14th, 1958, around 19 o'clock, which for those that aren't military, that's 7 o'clock in the evening, when he was returning from work and passing by the property of Dr. Dionisio Peretti, he saw a strange light in the bushes on the property, about 200 meters away. Though he feared what those lights could be, curiosity won, and jumped the property fence to get close to those lights in the bushes. Approaching a few feet from the bright bushes, it was not surprised when he saw a massive 30-meter diameter machine floating behind the bushes. Seeing that machine, the first thought was to run. But the curiosity was stronger, and he came even closer, when he began to distinguish a few silhouettes. But it was immediately hit by a ray of light and fainted. When he woke up, he was tied to a bed that resembled a hospital bed, and around him were all kinds of strange beings that apparently resembled humans, but were not human. Now, I'm going to pause just for a second in this article of reading it, and I just want to say, one, as I said in the beginning, this is a weird article, but also two, and I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, you have noticed this as well, and you're probably screaming inside your head right now, maybe even at the radio saying, what the hell? He keeps referring to himself in this article as it. I don't get that. It was not surprised when he saw a massive 30-meter diameter machine. That's strange. He's done that multiple times already. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe we'll learn later in the article why that is, but it's very weird. So we're going to go back to the article. Maybe it's that it was written in another country or something, because this obviously didn't happen in America. So maybe it's just a weird translation that's causing it. I don't know. But we'll go back to the article now. These beings were much taller than humans and were translucent, and their heads were covered with straw-colored hair. I gave them a few words, even different words from foreign languages, which I remembered from school and the movies I saw, but I was not taken into account. Shortly thereafter, two beings released him from the belts with which he was tied to the bed, and led him to a room where he was given to wear a kind of very long cape. Yes, all of that, I'm pretty sure that this was translated from another language, and that's the problem. Because they're trying to say what we would say in English, but it's just coming out a little weird. Because obviously this has been translated, so I think that was the issue. Being helped side by those two beings because he still felt dizzy. The beings opened a few doors until they got out of that machine without knowing where he was. I had the impression that I lost half my weight and that I grew up in volume. A very strange feeling. Supported by the two, I stepped out of what I found out that it was a spaceship in what looked like a narrow street flanked by tall, bright, and almost transparent buildings. Then they entered a massive building where, in a room with bright and transparent walls like glass, at a table that seemed to be made of the same material as the walls, they offered him to eat something that looked like beef and bread. His food was served in a transparent container from which he ate with his hands after he was first encouraged by gestures to eat. So obviously they passed in his stuff and they made the little hand to mouth motion like, hey dude, this is food, you can eat it. After eating, he was taken to another room full of different entities. The strange beings have tried to communicate with him in a language of incomprehensibility, without success, of course. Arthur also said a few words in Portuguese, Spanish, and German. When he spoke a word in German, one of the beings began to shout with great joy, Deutsch, Deutsch. After this meeting, the one who could speak a few words in German became his host during his visit to that strange world. At that moment, he still did not know he was on another planet. The host explained, more by way of gestures, that they are a civilization at 62 million light years, and that they call themselves a Carcini, the planet being called a Kark. Then he was accommodated in a one-room apartment in another strange building with walls like glass. There was a glass bed, a table, and a niche in one of the walls, which seemed to be a toilet, where there was a toilet, a sink, and even a shower. After being shown how all that works, he was invited to take a shower, what he did. The water seemed to be more like gaseous steam than normal water. During his stay there as a guest, the Arcac's host served him twice a day with various dishes, prepared especially for him to match his digestive system. It was served with all sorts of colored liquids, all with a sweet taste, in some glass carafe. It seems that the Arcadians have studied the earth for a long time, because it has been explained to them that they have no problems with unemployment, because all Arcadia have work, and that they do not use the money to buy the things they need. He has also learned that there are no offenses on a Kark, that Arcarkians are a nonviolent species from their point of view. After being explained, the big problem was the overpopulation of the planet, although it had not seen it with its own eyes, and it was explained that very soon some of the Arcarkians would try to settle on Earth, but that they are not yet ready for this. Arcarkians are governed by a government and a prime minister with full powers, but who is changed by popular elections every 3 Earth years. Due to technological advances, Arcarkians manage to live hundreds of years and suffer from no illness. Arthur did not really understand how they reproduced. A Kark is part of a solar system with only 3 planets, with a very bright sun and no moon. After 11 days, Arthur was brought back to the same place where he was taken. Soon after that unusual adventure, even that year, Arthur closed himself in his room for a few days, in which he wrote a 422-page book describing his adventure. The authenticity of events is also reinforced by the fact that Arthur says that he saw the Earth in space as a predominantly blue planet. And at that time, no one knew how the Earth looks from space. The first man to see the Earth in space being Yuri Gagarin in 1961. Arthur also says that during his stay on a Kark, he never felt threatened or stressed. Even though his stories raised questions among the peoples from his village, his family and friends always supported him. Arthur being known as a very serious person in his community. Arthur, another simple man who was kidnapped by aliens, had the privilege of traveling on another planet with friendly aliens, and is just one of the thousands who had similar experiences. Before this experience, I thought our God was a small one because he created only us. But now I realize his greatness and the fact that there are many things in the universe we do not even think of. And that is the end of the article. Now, this was a strange tale, but it was an interesting one. There's a few things in this article that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. First of all, they state in the article that they communicated mostly through gestures, and they explained things to him mostly through gestures. But then they go into great detail on how old the planet is he's on, what their system of government is, exactly how it works, how many years go by between elections, the powers of the prime minister. They go through all of this information. How did they do that using only gestures? That makes absolutely no sense to me. If I wanted to, let's say I'm an alien, or let's say, don't even say I'm an alien, let's just say I'm from another country, and I want to communicate with Old Boy, and I want to tell him about me, but he doesn't speak my language and I don't speak his. There is a language that we both speak, which is, let's say, Spanish, but we only speak a few words of Spanish, so it's not like we can actually communicate in Spanish. So mostly it's like 99% gestures that we're using to try to communicate back and forth. Now, I might be able to ask Old Boy where the bathroom is because I really got to pee, right? That's something that you can communicate fairly easily using gestures. I might even be able to say, hey, dude, I'm hungry. Can you show me a place to go get something to eat? That's something else that I could potentially very easily communicate with gestures. How the hell do you pantomime the entire system of government, how it works, and the powers of the prime minister? How is that possible? What gestures do you use to explain that there's a prime minister and there's a chancellor and every 3 years there's an election, that he has full powers, but he also has to get elected? How in the hell are you communicating that with gestures? To me, that makes absolutely no sense. I don't get it. Also, they talk about their civilization is at 62 million light years. Now, I don't quite understand what that means. Are they saying it's 62 million light years away? Or are they saying that it's been around for that long? I don't quite get it. Usually when you're talking light years, that means that it takes that many years for light to travel that distance. So usually when you're talking light years, you're talking a distance. So like, in other words, if I said that, hey, I'm going to go visit this planet at 62 million light years away, that means that it would take you 62 million years to reach that planet if you're traveling at the speed of light. That's what a light year is. So I've never heard the lifespan of a planet described as so many million light years. Usually it would just be years. So when they say light years here, I have to think they're talking distance. So that means that the distance of this planet is 62 million light years from Earth. Now, if that's the case, then how the hell did he see the Earth from there? Now, didn't he wake up on a table strapped to it and they released him? Maybe he saw it on the way home. Was he just kind of hanging out and chilling in a spaceship on the way home and looked out the window and there's Earth and that's how he saw it? Because they talk about that being a point that proves the story that he saw the Earth from outside the Earth and said it was mostly blue. Now, I understand maybe the first person didn't see the Earth from space until 61 and this happened in 58. I get that. But like there were maps and The maps, a lot of them were blue. I mean, it was widely known at that point in time that three-quarters of the world at least was water, so it makes sense that it would be blue. I mean, because that's what the blue is when you're looking at the Earth from space. You're looking at all the oceans, and that's why it appears blue. You have blue from the oceans. You have uh, like a brownish color for most of the land masses, and then you have the white of the clouds. The blue is the water, and we knew that the water was there. So it makes sense to me that he would say that it was blue if he was just trying to think, okay, what would it look like from space? It would be mostly blue because most of it's ocean. So to me, that's not so much as a point that proves a story as just can be explained as he was able to think rationally and logically and figure, okay, if three-quarters of the world is ocean, then it's going to look blue from space. That's not too hard to figure out. But it would also be interesting to know when he saw the Earth. The only time period he could have seen the Earth is when he was coming back to it, like right as he got up to it, to make that revelation that, oh my God, I saw the Earth and it was blue. They don't really talk about whether or not that's the case or what. So there's a lot of things in this article that are red flags to me. So is it true? That's what the question that we always try to answer when we do these things. Do we believe that this article is true? I have a general rule when it comes to witness accounts. I never want to discount a witness account simply because it sounds crazy. Because in the field that we're talking here, we're talking the paranormal field, because I think aliens qualify because they're not normal. It's something out of the ordinary. So when you're talking aliens, it's always going to be weird. It's always going to be strange because it's alien, right? That's what alien means. It not only means extraterrestrial, but it also, alien means out of the ordinary, strange. So it's going to be a strange witness report. So I don't like to ever discount any witness report for any creature or aliens or anything, ghost, anything, out of hand by just saying, ah, that's crazy. I always try to give it a chance. I always read it. I always try to verify things in it. And I always try to do what we call up here in the mountains the old sniff test. Now, what that means is, well, I'm sure you kind of know what that means already just by what I called it. But basically, what it means is you kind of read the story, and if it smells like BS, then most likely it's BS. Now, I don't mean if it smells like BS because it's kind of fantastical and you're like, it's kind of a little bit unbelievable. I mean, if there's things in the story that don't make sense, if there's contradicting things, if there's things that would take an extraordinary leap of logic. Now, one of those things in this story that I mentioned earlier was the fact that they plainly stated that they didn't speak any languages that each other could understand, or that he knew a few words of German, and this alien knew a few words of German, so they're able to talk a little bit, but mostly it was through gestures is how the communication took place. And then they go right after that and they talk about all of this amazing information that this guy knew about the planet, about the history, about the government, about all this stuff, about the fact that they gave him food. Now listen to this and understand my point here. They gave him a clear container with a substance in it. They had to make gestures to let him know that it was food. So they had to do the old hand to mouth thing, right? Where they point at the thing and they put their hand in their mouth like, eat it, dummy. That's what they had to do. So that he could understand this is food. I can eat this. Okay? But yet, they didn't have the language to explain that. That's a simple concept. If you know any more than a small handful of words of a language, you can get that point across that something's okay to eat. But they couldn't. Okay, so they didn't have that much vocabulary in common where they could explain that simple concept. And then you want me to take that leap of logic I was talking about, and you want me to believe that they didn't have the language in order to explain that simple concept of you can eat this. But yet somehow they had enough vocabulary in common in that language that they could explain the complexities of the government, the system, how there's a chancellor and how there's an election and how he has all these powers, and every 3 years he has to face election again from the people, and exactly how old the civilization is, and how many light years away from Earth it is, and that it has, what moons it has, and all this stuff. They had that amount of language in common. They could explain all those complex things. But they didn't have enough language in common to say, hey, you can eat that. Come on. Now, see, that does not pass the sniff test. To me, that smells like I've been walking through the field where the cows hang out and I done stepped in a big patty. That's what that smells like to me. Because, see, I got a pretty good BS detector. I can tell when somebody's peeing on my leg and tell me it's raining outside. I get it. This is blaring out to me BS. Now, as I said, I don't like to dismiss things without really having a reason to. Because when you start doing that, people are afraid to bring their witness accounts out because they're afraid people are going to make fun of them. But something like this, I'm not going to go as far as to say 100% not true, complete and total lie. I'm not going to say that because I don't know for sure. I wasn't there. I can't say for certain this isn't true. But I will say it does not pass the sniff test to me. It sounds like complete and utter BS. And the BS part for me is not the fact that he got abducted by aliens. Because there are abduction stories that I do believe. I do believe aliens exist, and I do believe that there are people that have been abducted by aliens. I do believe that those people have been experimented on by aliens, and maybe even taken off the earth, and maybe even to somebody's planet. That's not out of the realm of possibility for me. I am willing to entertain that idea. I am willing to say that that is possible, that it could have happened at some point. But I don't think it happened here. Several red flags. I've already mentioned a couple of them. Another red flag. He has this traumatic experience. Now picture this. You live in some little village in another country, right? You're just hanging out minding your own business. All of a sudden you see this bush that's real bright and you're like, what the hell is that? Why is that bush on fire? Is it on fire? Is that the burning bush? Am I getting ready to talk to God? What's going on back there? Then all of a sudden you say, I'm going to go up and look at it and see what is going on. Why is that bush so bright? So you go up to the bush and you start messing with it, and then all of a sudden you wake up strapped to a table. Some weird looking alien dude above your head. Now I don't know if they were like the gray aliens you see in the movies, or maybe they look like a squid. Who knows what the hell these things look like? They never said. But you wake up on a table strapped to it with an alien above you. Pretty traumatic, isn't it? That would kind of freak you out a little bit. It would definitely get my blood pumping. I'd be ready to try to whoop some ass or something. I'd be a little freaked out. I mean, that's not cool. That's an attack. That's an abduction. That's a kidnapping. There's no difference than if you just walked up to look at a bush and I clunked you on the back of the head with something and threw you in my van and took you down to the river or something. There's no difference. That's what happened here, if we're to believe this story. So he wakes up strapped to the table. But then these dudes are friendly. So they like let him up and they eat and they hang out and they tell him all about everything and take him home eventually. So you get back to home and he decides after this traumatic experience, because even if it's an all right experience, even if they ended up being all right dudes, the beginning of it really sucked. And it's got to really freak you out. The whole thing's got to freak you out. So then you think, I know, I am going to write a book. I'm going to write a 400 and some page book where I tell his story. That's another big red flag to me. Because if this actually happened to you, especially in 1958, you ain't telling nobody. You might tell your wife. You kind of have to tell your wife. And any of you out there that are married, that are listening to the show, you will agree 100% with me. You have got to tell your wife. You just can't not tell your wife. Now, the problem is your wife's not going to believe you. Now, picture this. You're hanging out. You disappear. You're up on a spaceship. You're doing all the alien thing, right? But down here on Earth is your wife. All she knows is you didn't come home. And your ass has been gone for 11 days. Now you show up 11 days later back at the house, and you know what's going to happen. First of all, your wife's going to be very happy that you're alive, because most likely after 11 days, she thought you done died. But here you are alive, so it's a miracle you're alive. Oh, I'm so happy you're alive. The very next thing that woman's going to say to you is, where in the hell have you been? What have you been doing, and what is her name? I guarantee that's the next question. So then, put yourself in this situation, people. You got to look at that woman who is very pissed now. She's mad at you because you done split for 11 days. She thinks you were out fooling around with somebody. You got to look that woman in the eye and say, all right, listen, I'm going to tell you what happened. All right, put the gun down. I'm going to tell you what happened. There was this bush, right? And there was this light coming out of the bush. So I thought, hey, what's that light? So I'll go check out the light. So I walked over there and I looked at the light. I woke up on a table, strapped to a table. There were aliens above me. But don't worry, the aliens were cool. I don't know why they had to strap me down. Maybe they thought I wasn't cool. But they let me go and they gave me this food that was in this clear container and they told me all about their civilization. And we hung out and it was great, man. We partied. It was wonderful. And then they brought me home. Now, what the hell do you think your wife's reaction is going to be to that? There's no way you're telling anybody. People are going to call you crazy if you talk about what happened. There's definitely no way in 1958 that you're going to write a book about it and tell the entire world what happened. I don't buy it. Big red flag. It's just not going to happen. Now, today, if that happened today, your wife still wouldn't believe you. I mean, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. Your wife's kicking your ass after being gone for 11 days. That's the bottom line. She's not going to believe it. But I can see somebody today writing a book about it because everybody today wants to be famous for some reason. So I could definitely see it happening that way today, of somebody saying, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book. Although it depends on the age of the person, because if it's a younger person, maybe they're not going to write a book. Maybe they're just going to do a video on YouTube about it or something. But they're going to try to make something out of it. Back then, I just don't see it happening. Especially the dude lives in a village in another country. It's not like he lives in New York or California or something here in the States where he could write a book and he could go to a publisher and get, it's just not the same. That's another huge red flag. So my ruling on it is, while it might be possible that this was true, in my opinion, in my view, it is not probable that this is true. I think it's BS. Every alarm in my head is going off on this one. I don't buy this whatsoever. I think it's BS. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now, and we will get his opinion on the story and what he thinks about it. So go ahead, brother.
And thank you, brother. I enjoyed listening to you tell us about the story. And that's what it was. In my opinion, it's a story that somebody's making up. And I'll get to why. For one, I think it was from another country because he keeps calling himself it, or he's just an idiot. Well, let's say that. In village, there's no real villages in America. There is still in Romania, and I'm thinking maybe one of these countries, Hungary, or maybe even in Europe, in England or something, in Scotland. So, what I think is, it's just like James is talking about. He already beat me. There's no beating around the bush. This is probably made up. Is BS. And him saying it. He got fed all this weird kind of food, and they couldn't talk. Come on, if they know how to all this wonderful stuff, and buildings and spaceships, and they're going to know how to talk. They're not going to just not know how to talk. It probably saw something on TV like Doctor Who. It sounds like an episode of Doctor Who, so that's why I said it sounds like Europe. So, and you got the idea, because like I said, a lot of people want to be famous. So he just said, well, you know what? I'll get this story out, and people will believe me. I'm a little village person, man, and no one's going to think I'm lying. So he gets this story out of nowhere. Just like James said, his wife probably beat him up anyway because he lied. He was gone for 10 or 11 days. So, if I was his wife, she probably beat him over the head with a broom or a bat or whatever she can grab at the time. That would probably been funny. That would have been great to see. That would have been a better story in this, because that was probably more real than him getting his ass kicked. Was probably more realer than what really happened. What probably happened, he went out drinking, found some lady, got drunk, or went out drunk in stupor. Or he was, and he, oh man, I've been gone for 11 days. I got to make up a story for my wife. So he made this elaborate story because he probably watches Doctor Who a lot, or whatever, Star Trek or Star Wars, and made this elaborate story up. And like James said, it's BS. And that's why I like doing these little shows, what we do, right? Like these ones, because then we can it's not always saying that things are real. I'm not saying it's 100% fact. It might be true to a point, I don't believe it. I just don't believe that they didn't know how to talk. Just some of the stuff he was saying, buildings and in a burning bush. That was another thing. That's more like he got that from the Bible. So he probably used that part of the Bible, and he goes, well, you know what? I'll make it different. And I talk to aliens, a burning bush or in flying. It just seems like he put the Bible together, and then he just added stuff from a TV show and whatever imagination, or he was probably drunk. So he probably wanted to lie to his wife. So his wife, I don't know who would believe this story, but she, somebody did, because it's there. There's an article, so they wanted to listen to this. So just because people do articles don't mean it's true either. There's 10 trillion articles. Somebody could say anything. It doesn't mean it's real. That's why I laugh, because I know some people probably think this is real. Just like here's funny thing as we're talking about this is 35 to 36% of people think you can get the coronavirus by drinking Corona. That's why Corona's trying to get it where they can change the name, because they're losing money, because there's actually people who believe you can get the coronavirus from drinking Corona. And I'm not joking. I saw this today on the news. May not be true, probably being exaggerated, but there's probably people who believe this. And I'm just showing you an example, like they used to do on the Tonight Show. They would go around and ask people if stuff was real. And I swear to you, they did this one where they said Godzilla was real and he attacked Japan in the 1950s. When Godzilla first came out, I think it was 1956 or 54, one of those two, 55. And people believed it. and they think Godzilla should be liable for what the damage he did to Japan. And these people seriously believe this. So I do believe there's probably somebody who believes this. I mean, I think people want their imaginations filled so much they don't care. If you have the evidence right there, you could have it on video. The guy was making fake, had somebody with a bag and have a bunch of people making props. They would still find a way to believe it, because it's just how people are. They want to believe in something that may not even be real and it's BS, but you know what? They believe in it. And some people say you believe in something, it will come real. It will manifest itself. It will become real. Like the Slender Man that came out with, that was what creepy pasta and that thread, Grim or whatever it was, and what came a story. There was some truth about it. Ended up getting blown up like creepy pasta altogether. Like all their creatures ended up becoming folk stories, and then Reddit and all these other things, and people were actually believed in Slenderman. There's people who've killed because over Slenderman, and they said to this day they've seen him, and now it's become real. Like Freddy Krueger, people didn't believe in him when he came back against Jason versus Freddy. I'm a big horror fan. They forgot about Freddy Krueger. Well, he wanted to be remembered again. So then he becomes real. Then it comes from fable to reality. Then you have people copying it to try to be like that. So what I think is this was just a poor guy, probably got caught up cheating on his wife or out drinking. You don't know what he was doing. Got tired or just wanted to leave. So he made up this elaborate story, or he just wanted to be famous. Or maybe there is a possibility this is true. There's probably about 1%, maybe 0.5% I'll give it. I think it's about 99.5% not real. I even give it 0.5%. I don't believe any of it really, but it's good to do the show about this because not everything has to be aliens and ghosts and goblins. We can always debunk stuff too, and I like doing that too because you got something different all the time. We in this show we don't do the same thing all the time. We don't talk about one boring subject after another. We investigate it, check it out, do a lot of research, and then we'll talk about it. And that's what's different with all these other shows. There's some people out there who do a lot of similar to us, just like I heard with the Nephilim. Oh, this guy did this show. Well, just to let you know, that was our third or fourth show we've done in the last 3 years. You can sit there and say whatever you want, but this is our third show we've done about this in 3-4 years. I've studied this everything for years. So is James. And when James does stuff, he really does stuff. And hours worth of, investigations, researching, he does it. And I'm not saying anybody else doesn't do it. They probably do. They probably good. But I'm saying this is why we do this, to research if this is real. We take some of these articles because they're fun, they're interesting, and they're not boring, and we try to make them as entertaining as we possibly can on a PG radio station on Parax. Cheap plug there. So, yes, I think this story's a joke, but it's comedy because I think he probably got hit over the head and probably slept on the couch or out in the street because his wife probably handled him. That's probably what really happened, and that's what's really funny because I could see this guy coming home and telling his wife this or somebody, and then what he did is he said, "Oh, I'll make it look so I don't." He goes and tells some kind of paper or something, and that's how it happens. I'm not saying these people are liars or anything, but he probably wants to be famous. There's a lot of people who want to be famous, so I'll make up. I saw these aliens or something, and the burning bush. So it just sounds like a bunch of made up BS that he put together, and now he got his way. We're talking about it right now on the radio station. Right now on the radio show, we're talking about this article. So he got his way. So now it's becoming a reality. We're talking about it. But there you go, James. That's what I summed up on it.
The thing that is so fascinating to me about this, why was aliens his go-to? I mean, once again, put yourself in that position. You show back up after 11 days, your wife is going to be furious. You know you're in trouble. You know you got to come up with a story. Why the hell would you choose aliens? Why wouldn't you say, I fell off a cliff and I hurt myself and it knocked me out it took a while to get back. Got hit by a car, something. Something that's more believable than I got taken away on a spaceship to another planet. I mean, you know she's not going to buy that. That just cracks me up. And it's funny that old boy said that because it does sound like some crazy story that somebody who was really drunk would come up with to tell you to make an excuse why they did something. I've heard stories like that. I used to be a musician, and one of the drawbacks of playing music for a living was you're in a hell of a lot of bars. And in bars, you have a lot of drunk people. And you hear some really hilarious stories that these people are trying to tell. Now, they're not really telling the stories all the time to make themselves look cool or whatever. It's usually they're telling the story to a female because they are trying to get that female to leave the bar with them and go back to their house for extracurricular activity. So they're trying to tell this story to this woman to make that woman think that they are awesome and, oh man, I got to go home with this dude. He's great. And some of the tales that they would tell in these bars were outlandish. And for a sober person, because I was sober, and I'd be listening to this and I'd be laughing because I'm like, there's no way anybody is going to buy that crap. It is the worst story ever. But in the drunk guy's mind, he's on fire, baby. He's shooting it out like crazy. And everybody's just soaking it in and they just think he's the greatest thing on earth. When in reality, he sounds like a moron. But he doesn't realize that because he's hammered. Now, if he's lucky, the chick is hammered too. So maybe she does think he's the greatest thing on earth because she's buying it because she's hammered. I don't know. It was just hilarious to watch those things happen, and that's what this sounded like. And he hit it right on the head. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's some guy that came home after an 11-day bender and is like, oh man, I'm in so much trouble. I got to come up with something. And this is what he chose. Now, in all fairness, we could be 100% wrong. This could have actually happened to this fella, and we're wrong. But I don't think so. Because it's not the fact that he was abducted and taken to another planet that makes me say this is BS. It's all the little details that make me say this is BS. It's all the little things that don't make sense, that don't add up. And when you're looking at something, that's a really big red flag. That's how you have to go about this. You have to look at each individual witness report, each individual piece of evidence, and you have to say, does this make sense? You have to check everything and say, okay, this contradicts this doesn't fit with that. If this is true, that means this can't be true. It doesn't pass the sniff test. That's how you have to look at it. The problem is there's too many things that don't add up in this story for me to give it any kind of credibility. And it's sad in a way because, man, I would love for this to be a true story. Because it's a fantastic story. But it doesn't add up. And there's nothing I can do to change that. But old boy brought up a point too that it's important to do these stories sometimes because this is an article that a lot of people have seen and read probably. This is put out there in the public, and if you go to any of these articles on the websites, they have comment sections underneath, the majority of them. And you'll see in the comment sections people agreeing with the article. And you'll see people disagreeing with the article. But when you have something like this, and this story is so obviously BS, to anybody that's capable of logical thinking. But then you look in the comments section and there's so many people that believe it. And they're like, oh, this is amazing. That guy actually went to another planet, and that happened to my cousin Pookie. And Pookie was down there on 25th Street, and an alien showed up in a yellow cab and told Pookie to get in the trunk. And Pookie said, I don't want to get in the trunk. I want to sit up front. And the alien said, you can't sit up front. You're Pookie, and I'm an alien. You got to get in the trunk. So he got in the trunk. So then he thought he was going to the airport, but what he actually did was he went to another planet where they all eat out of garbage cans, and they all eat Twinkies filled with Spam. And that's what happened to Pookie. And you're reading that comment and you're thinking, my God, this person is an idiot. And not only are they an idiot because of this story they just told, which is obviously BS, but they believe this other story too, which is obviously BS. So there are a lot of people that will believe things that are obviously false. Now, that does not just happen in the paranormal. That happens in every aspect of life. And it boils down to a couple different things. One, it boils down to the utter failure of our education system. If our education system was doing the job it's designed to do, which is actually educate children, teach them history and science and math, they wouldn't fall for dumb stuff like that. But they don't do that. It's not education, it's indoctrination. They don't teach actual stuff that's important to learn anymore. They teach a little bit of it, but nowhere near like what it was. Let me give you a great example. And I know what everybody's thinking right now, oh my God, he's going to get into politics. I'm not. I'm actually going back in time. I'm not talking about modern day stuff right now. Back in the early 1800s, you had to take an exam to get out of elementary school. Now, that exam that they took to get out of elementary school, somebody thought it would be a really fun thing to do, to give that exam to college graduates, people that had just graduated from college. Now, what happened when they gave the exam that children used to have to take to get out of elementary school? When they gave that exam to recent college graduates, what happened is the overwhelming majority of those college graduates could not pass the damn exam that children used to take to get out of elementary school. That is how bad our education system has gotten. They're too worried about political correct nonsense. They're too worried about which bathroom everybody's going to pee in, instead of worrying about teaching history and science and the important things that people need to know to make it in the world. It's a joke now. So what happens when you have an education system that's a joke is the people that graduate from that education system are ignorant. Now, when I say ignorant, I mean they don't have the knowledge that they were supposed to have learned in school. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are stupid. They could be intelligent people. They were just never taught the important things. So then they get out into the real world and they can't tell you how many branches of government there are. Because I've seen those man on the street interviews as well on the Tonight Show and shows like that. They ask these people, they don't know what the three branches of government are. They can't tell you who the damn vice president of the United States is at the current time that the question is being asked. They can't tell you who the first president of the United States is. There's all kinds of things they can't tell you that they should know, that any American should know the answer to these questions. They have absolutely no idea. But you ask those same people to name 10 beers, and they'll rattle them off like it's nothing, like it's the easiest question in the world. You ask those same people to name 3 TV shows that are on, they can do it like it's nothing. They can't tell you the 3 branches of government, but they can tell you 3 shows on NBC. That's a problem. Because you have these people who don't know anything. And those people are voting. That is scary. Because when you have an uninformed public, you're going to have a corrupt government. Period. There's no way around it. When the people don't know history and they don't know what's going on, there's no way they can make an informed decision. That's why you have a whole generation of people now who think socialism is a dandy idea, because they don't know history. They don't know all the death and the suffering that has caused the world. They don't know the millions and millions of people that were murdered, exterminated in the name of socialism and communism. They have no idea. They think it just means free stuff. It's indoctrination, not education. That's the problem. But with that being said, we are out of time, so I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy and get his final shout-outs.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, James. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I did. It was really good. Thank you guys at Parax. We love you guys for listening every week. We tried, a couple. I had just to let you guys know, I had my appendix out last week, so that's why we did the week before I wasn't doing the show. So I feel a lot better now since I have the surgery. You guys want to watch listen to all the other shows and watch some of the shows we do from Tales from the Abyss. Go to James Hershey's YouTube page, subscribe. You guys know where it's at. You guys go to the merchandise store. He'll tell you where to go. Shirts, etc. All the cool stuff there. Whatever you guys want, let us know. You want something specially made, we'll do it. We'll autograph it for you guys. I hope everybody has a wonderful night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster hunters, and demon lovers, I love you, and blessed be. Good night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where you will find all of the replays of the episodes of Staring into the Abyss, the radio show. That's where you will find every episode of the TV show Tales from the Abyss we do. That's where you will find a bunch of different paranormal news videos and other little side videos we do where we are on investigations and doing different things and talking about different subjects that are in the news that have to do with the paranormal. There's a whole bunch there. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos. If you are listening on the radio, please go there and subscribe to the channel and enjoy it. It's 100% free, and it's a good resource for a nice online library of all the past shows. So if there's an episode you missed or an episode that you really liked that you want to hear again, they're all there for you. It's 100% free. You can just go and listen whenever you want. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And if you guys could share the videos on your social media and stuff, that would be super awesome. That helps out a great deal to help spread the show. And it's probably the very best possible thing you could do to help support the channel and help support the show is to share and to like and subscribe. There's several of you that comment all the time, and I greatly appreciate all of you. I just want you to know that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything. The merchandise store, if you are interested in merch, is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's teespring.com/store with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. There's t-shirts, there's sweatshirts, there's hoodies, there's leggings, there's posters and towels and iPhone cases and Android cases and mugs, and just every damn thing you could think of is there. There's a ton of stuff there. We have merchandise with the staring eye on it with the logo of the show. We also have a bunch of different cool designs of horror themed shirts, and there's all kinds of really, really cool stuff there. So if you're interested in merch to support the show, that's where you can find it. Or if you're just into the paranormal and into horror stuff, there's stuff there for you as well. I try to keep all the prices pretty low to where it's pretty much just above cost so that we can afford to make it and ship it. But it's not like we're making any real money off the store or anything. I just wanted a place for you guys to be able to get the merch because I've had multiple people that have asked me about it. So that's where it is. If you're interested, if you're not, that's completely cool too. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Thank you for all the support and all the thoughts and prayers while old boy was out. We greatly appreciate that stuff. And until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
All these voices